Welcome to this edition of the Ultimate Photo Guide Digital Photography Series, brought to you by Popular Photography and American Photo magazines. This DVD series uniquely informs, instructs, and inspires you to push the boundaries of your photographic endeavours with expert insight, step-by-step demonstrations, and thoughtful explanations. Start bending the rules, expanding your abilities, and exploring the many possibilities of advanced digital photography. So grab your camera and enjoy this edition of the Ultimate Photo Guide Digital Photography Series.
So why self-publish? Why create a book? There's a lot of reasons why. The beauty in it is that you have the opportunity to take your own creative visual imagery and put it together in a collection around a theme and publish it in a way that you can share it with people that educates them how you want to see the world and want others to see the world. The tools are there for you to be able to utilize your creativity and put a photo book together that you may never have considered before. You can do it in print, you can do it as an iBook or as an ebook. The variations to how you can express yourself visually are there waiting for you to happen. We're going to show you how to do it, how simple it is, how exciting it is, how you can embellish it, how you can take a certain collection of 40 images and make a very compelling and provocative book. I had a recent trip to Key West that I decided I'm going to put a book together on this. So in this DVD, I'm going to show you how we put these images into a 40-page book that is going to excite you to want to come to Key West, which is the ultimate goal. But really, the personal goal is to show you how to display a wonderful collection of photographs in your own self-published book. The concept of self-publishing a book is really a marvelous idea, and there's a lot of companies out now that are out there that allow you to be able to self-publish. When you self-publish a book, the beauty of it is that if you are an editorially minded photographer and you go to a place like Key West and you shoot this as you're telling a story, so you're introducing relatives about what Key West is all about, the expanse of Key West. That's a great way to do it. But the secret to it, again, is to not become redundant in your work. Try to find images that are engaging, images that have content, images that are telling the audience, look at me. And when you find that path, whether it be a smartphone or whether it be black and white, whether it be nothing but shooting fire hydrants or shooting storefronts as the variety of things that happen in Key West, or you tell a story about the variety of things to see at Key West, you are going to find that putting your images together in a way that, again, is interesting, provocative, artistic, you will find that this collection of images in putting this book together will bring something to your audience that they hadn't seen before. A couple things to think about and consider when you're going out to shoot, when you've already got it in your mind that you want to shoot your own self-published book. And a lot of this can be done ahead of time. You know, like any project, any good photographer does a little bit of advanced planning before they go down, okay? So you look and you see, well, I think I'm going to want to shoot this, and I'm going to shoot nothing but storefronts. And so my whole book is going to be on unique, unusual storefronts and or historic homes that exist in Key West. Okay, well then you go on Google if you've never been to Key West before, and you find out all these locations and you plan your trips around where they are, right? What time of the day are they south facing? What time of the day are they north facing? Do I want to be there on an overcast day? All of these things are considerations that good photographers use to be able to get the best photographs they can at the time that we're there. Now, that's a plan. There's a flip side to that, and I can't tell you how many times this happens to shooters. You go down with a plan, and then you find out that, wow, there's something else down here that I'm finding really interesting and seductive visually that I'm going to can my plan. And I'm going to do now, I'm only going to shoot all of the chickens that run wild in Key West. So you take that change and you've altered it, which is fine. You go with what your instincts tell you most often. But now you have to go through that same planning process. And once you go through that same planning process that you did pre-planning before you came down, now you need to spend a little bit of time talking to people. Where can I find the chickens? Who has a pet chicken? Why are the chickens running free in Key West? Next thing you know, you've started to build a visual inventory that you can go out and attack to still be able to put a book together that will be different and not repetitive. The books that interest me the least are oftentimes landscape books by beginners. And the reason is that every page that I go through tends to look the same. It's another landscape that's in the distance. It's another shot of something that's far away. I get tired of looking at that really quickly. So when you're shooting a book, you need to think about that. How can I photograph my subject, my town, Key West, in a way that someone that's never been there before can become interested in the visual material that I'm giving them? So let's look at the same formula that I tend to talk about quite a bit, especially in the workshops. You need to have an overview shot, something that gives us a sense of place of where we are. Because let's face it, if you don't have something that's iconic about Key West, you know, the fort, Smathers Beach, the bowl, you know, Sloppy Joe's on Duval Street, it could be Fort Lauderdale. It could be Miami. It could be any small town that's dressed along the Keys. So you try to find something that gives us a sense of place. Then from there, we need to move in. We need to get portraits. So a portrait of a bartender in the bar, a cigar roller who works in Key West and makes his living off selling hand-rolled cigars inside of a bar. These are things that give us a kind of a close-up bit of texture and personality and richness to our scene. Then from there, we need to come in closer. Let's face it, this is Key West, where there's beaches, where there's sand, where there's shells. So you come in and you get a detail shot. So think about that now. As you're putting this book together, if I've got this, and I've got this, and I've got this, as I interweave these images throughout the book, and I'm going here, 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 I'm interested in the subject matter as I go from page to page. And these are the kind of things that, you know, quietly think about as you're moving around. You come across a scene that's incredibly active, like Duval Street in Key West. Well, my gosh, get that panoramic shot, you know, do 7-shot stitch that shows this corner all the way to this corner so you see the intersection of Duval Street. And now, come in and get a close-up shot of one of the shops, then the people going by, and then come up and shoot a close-up shot of the bike that's parked out front or the dog that's walking by. Now you've got people interested. They're not only feeling Duval Street as it is on a postcard, but now they're feeling the texture and the grittiness that comes with it. So one of the things that becomes, I think, problematic also when you go to a place like Key West, don't spend all your time on the beach. I mean, let's face it, people go to Key West because they want to be around the ocean. But if you spend all of your time around the ocean and you've got a 40, 50-page book on Key West and all we see are pictures of people walking on the beach, that gets pretty redundant too, just like your landscape becomes redundant. So interweave that, go in and out of town to make an interesting project, and you'll find that that mixture, that richness that comes from a place like Key West can become a really interesting book. Why publish your own book? Why put a book together? I think one of the most compelling reasons is because you can. And there are specific advantages to self-publishing. I kind of look at using these self-publishing companies, you know, like Blurb and like Shutterfly, like Lulu, MyBook, My Publisher, as a vehicle to be able to do projects that are personal, but even professionally, editorially, from a business perspective. It's a way through print on demand to be able to do a book that a publisher is not going to touch, because the geographic area of a particular area, for example, a small town, might not be a big enough project to where a big house publisher could afford to do a book on that location, but yet a book is needed because they could never sell enough books to be able to pay for the cost of putting the book together. Whereas when you self-publish, you might go into a small town that has a population of 100, but in the summer months it rises to 10,000 because it's resort country. Next thing you know, you say to yourself, wow, if I put a book together of this area and I got it into 2 of the shops in this tiny little town, I only have to print enough copies that will sell every week. So the investment that you make on putting that book project together from a business perspective is actually better. Let's look at it from an environmental standpoint. There's less paper being used, there's less transportation costs, gas, travel to bring books from a major publisher to a location and be able to sell them. They become personalized. So from the environmentalist perspective and from the perspective of print on demand, yes, publishing a single book is a little bit more expensive than printing 5,000 books and having the reduced being cost. But the advantage is you only have to supply enough books that will be able to sell as opposed to having to rent warehouse space to house 2,000 other books waiting to be sold. So there's pluses and minuses both ways with it. And that's one of the ways to look at this. The other is that there are so many options that in publishing, it's no different than a major publisher on how you decide to want to do it. Most of these software programs have very simplified areas that you can just go in. My daughter, for example, for school projects, she goes on and she uses Bookify in Blurb. She can put a book together and publish a book overnight for a school project. It's that simple. Yet, if you want to be a professional and you want to incorporate a designer, a graphic designer that can put icons and design pages, you can also upload very professional pages using the professional options that you have in any one of these book publishers. There's any number of ways you can do it. One of the things that I've really enjoyed with it is the different formats and other things that you can consider. You know, one of the cutest ones are these little tiny books. You know, this it's an 8x8 book, and I love these for using smartphone photos, and I tend to make these for my family. So as I'm on assignment and as I travel around the world, I carry my smartphone with me, and I'll grab shots, and then I'll put those together in a nice little book that's a hardcover book that is so simple to do that these actually end up becoming great gifts for people. That's one option. Also, notice it's a hardcover. No jacket flap with this one. You have a choice. Hardcover. Or you can also go to a project like this that I did on I Turn Bowls as a hobby. This is a softcover book. Again, no flap jacket, it's just softcover, so you have options. Hardcover book, which will last forever, or you have an option of having a softcover book, which is a lot more pliable, slightly less expensive to do. And then another hardcover book, you can see the binding on this is perfect. It's stitched binding. So the difference between this book and a book you'd find in a major publisher, very little difference. And again, you can have as many pages as you want or as little pages as you want. And so all of these depend on how you're going to do it. Choosing the size format for the size images you want to do. For those of you that are landscape photographers, they tend to go towards the bigger book, whereas the 8x10 size book is the more common book, the more economical book that people will use on a lot of these self-publishing sites. They're easy to handle, they're easy to print, they're easy to publish. There are great ways. I use this book in one of my workshops where we do a workshop, and at the end of the workshop, everybody sends their pictures in, and we put a book together so everybody has a book of what happened during the workshop. What a great, simple way to be able to take that educational experience with you and also through the eyes of others. A great tool. Landscape guys tend to like the bigger formats. This is Blurb's largest format. It's a 10 by 14, 10 by 13 book. And as you can see on this one, another one of the options, you can also have a jacket flap. So rather than having the image printed directly onto the book, you can actually have a wraparound, so where you have it on both sides or one side and you've got a full-size book, but it's a landscape book. A friend of mine, Jason, did this wonderful book, or Dennis did a wonderful book on Iceland. And so you can see with this large format look, I've got a tremendous amount of room for very large spreads that can really bring the landscape right into your living room. And what a great way to be able to have a book that you did on your own. His theme was simply Iceland. And so as you go through here again, you can see he has incorporated wonderfully descriptive captions about locations, what have you, that again make the book more interesting, more compelling to me, because not only am I looking at fine images, but I'm looking at what the image is and where it is and what it's about. And he's also provided environmental information that talks about, you know, the future, global warming. These are all things that you can include or exclude per your choice on what your book is. So lots of options on how you put your books together, lots of companies that you can choose. And if you're unsure about what companies to choose, just Google it, type in self-publishing books and you'll see dozens and dozens of different options for it. Some of the more common questions when you're putting these books together is, how much are they going to cost? I mean, let's face it, cost is always a factor, right? Well, it's pretty simple. A lot of it is determined by the size of the book. If you're using a smaller book, the 8x8 book, obviously the amount of ink and paper costs are going to be less than if you're using one of the large format books, which are 10 by 13 inches. And so that's one of the considerations. The other considerations are how many pages. Back just not even a couple of years ago, you paid per how many pages you had, but those pages were segmented. So you had a book that was going to be anywhere from 10 to 20 pages, that was a certain cost. And if it was 20 to 40, that was a certain cost. Well, now they've gotten to the point where they've become so sophisticated that if you only want to have a 24-page book, then you go to the 20-page mark and then you pay per page after that. So that's kind of how it works. And it makes it really simple. So based on size, based on how many pages you have in your book, determines the cost of your book. It doesn't matter if it's color or black and white. Those kinds of things, they're printing them the same, so it doesn't matter. The other considerations are, like in my workshops where we have everybody sends their images in and we do a book together. Everybody sends their images to me, then I put the book together. So we may have 15 people in the workshop. What I tell them is that I will put the book together. I will then take the book. I will get the first copy published. The way most of these work, once you upload the book, you've got 14 days to buy a book. After that 14-day period, they figured, okay, they've changed their mind and they delete your book. So make sure that you buy at least one book, and that's all you have to purchase is one book, and then it stays on there forever until you delete it, okay? So it becomes your choice, but that's kind of the way the financial mechanism works for them and for you. You got to order at least one book. So for the workshops, and for any other book that I do, before I buy a number of these books, I upload it, I publish it, I wait till I get it, and then I go through every page and I make sure that I haven't had any spelling errors. I make sure that the photos are reproducing faithfully. And if there's ever any issues, I simply have to go back online. Your book is still saved. I can go back in, edit the book, and then I simply delete the old copy, upload the new copy, and then I buy another book. So all I'm really doing is protecting my own investments, making sure that the book is exactly what I want before I order 10, 20, 30. And then when you do that, oftentimes these companies will offer you discounts on volume publishing. So if you're doing a book on a family reunion where there'll be 200 people, chances are if you order 200 books, you're going to get a substantial discount for doing that. Also, many of these companies will send you emails once you've registered, hey, Mother's Day's coming up. You want to do a book for mom? Here's 20% off to do a book for mom. Boom, you're set to go. So you keep an eye on these kinds of discounts, which helps reduce that cost. So if you're making books for business reasons, there are time periods throughout every year where they offer massive discounts, where that's the time to order your books and get your deals in so you can save some money on the publishing. So all kinds of little tricks to the trade. And again, if you're ever worried about how to find out this information, simply use your internet browser, hit your Googles, your Bings, all of your browser software, find out selfpublishing.com and look at all of the different variations and find out who does what and where you want to go, what you're comfortable with. And like I said, when I got turned on to this, I went to Blurb because a friend of mine had used Blurb. And so it's something that I became comfortable with. And once you become comfortable with something, chances are, once you're comfortable, you're more expedient, you're comfortable with it, and it's the way you go. So it really doesn't matter who, they're all kind of the same. You just find out what you're comfortable with and go with it. But once you do it, I think you're gonna be bit by the bug and you're gonna find out that you have a lot of images to do a lot of self-publishing with. So the self-published books that I've done, I've done books for publishers, but I've also really enjoyed this aspect of self-publishing. But people ask, well, what's the hardest part about putting a book together? And I will tell you, it's not the shooting, because I love the shooting. That's the creative process. That's the part that you're out there, you're in the field, you're gathering images. And I tend to leave no stone unturned. So I really embrace that part of the creative process. The most difficult part of putting a book together is the editing process. And this is where I see the single greatest frustration and mistakes that people putting their own books together tend to fall into this category. And it's because they try to put too many images in their book. And that can become a killer. So the way a lot of these books work is you have, you can do a 10-page book, you can do a 20-page, 40, 60, 80, as many as you want to. Start with a 40-page book, because if a 40-page book is put together, coming up with 40 images that are distinctively different, compelling photographs, that's a lot of pictures to put together, 40 pages. 40 images that don't become repetitive, that don't bore your audience after the third page. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it is. You come back from your vacation and you've got 2,000 pictures and you're trying to narrow them down to 40? That's tough. But in doing so, being your own worst enemy and an editor is always the hardest thing for people to do. So editing is tough. You've got to be brutal. You've got to make sure that you bring in enough images for your upload that are going to be able to give you a variety of imagery and a good flow, depending upon if it's an art book or if it's an editorial book. You want to have a variety that makes your audience say, I want to go to the next page. So what I tend to do is, after I've gone through all of the images and I decide my theme, it's a lot easier if you have an idea. If you don't have a theme, you are going to be treading water. You're not going to be swimming from the beach out to the boat, okay? You've got to make sure that you know what you want to do, because if you know what you want to do, you have a goal. Then you've got lines between your edit that you're going to try to fill. That's really, really important, because if you don't, you're just going to be lost. So I go through this process, and I go through all of this, and I make sure that I've got all of the images that I want to be able to tell my story. My book on Key West is more of an editorial look at all of kind of Key West. A little bit of the wacky, a little bit of the culture, a little bit of the historic, a little bit of the beach, a little bit of the sky. And so I have a combination of things, and so I try to find the best images of the beach, the best images of Duval Street, the best images of the eclectic, and then weed those out and then upload those images into what I have. So when you get to the point where you want to upload your images, you've done your edit, I tend to upload about 20% more than I'm actually going to need for the allotted amount of pages that I'm going to be putting in the book. The reason is that when I'm doing that, I want to have my pages work together as marriages. Not just the left page, but also the right page. So when you open up that book, these two images together become a marriage. And so that's kind of what I'm doing. So as I upload it, you can see here, I've got this wonderful upload, and I've uploaded all my shots now, and they're all here. And so I can pick and choose as I want. I have my templates that are up here that I can choose the sizes of the pages that I want and how I want my images displayed. That's a perfect way to do it. So then I can start looking at my picture and go, okay, well, I've got two verticals. Do I want to have two verticals on the same page? Do I want to put two verticals opposing each other? Do I have two square images like you see on the page here that work really well dynamically together? These are all the things that you want to think about when it comes time to uploading and editing your pictures. Narrow down the herd, get rid of the repetition, upload in your edit about 20%, 30% more than you think you're going to need. But yet those images, when I say that 20 to 30%, what I'm saying is that if you're at the beach and you've got 10 great beach shots, well, once you've done your edit, you've narrowed it down to 4, you're only going to use 2 perhaps. What that does is that gives you a little bit more of freedom in your layout when it comes up which images are going to work better on that page that becomes a marriage and where it's going to play. So you're giving yourself a little bit of wiggle room to be able to put something together that artistically is going to work better on the page. Every one of those images is strong, so if you have to get rid of one, it doesn't matter. The other 2 that you've chosen are equally strong. It's just now, what strength are you going to be able to pull out of them to make the best layout that you possibly can? Key point with the editing of your images, prior to uploading, make sure that you've got your images the way you want them before you upload them, because once you upload them, they're there to be put into the book. The enhancements that take place once you upload them aren't photo-driven, they're layout-driven. So you've got to be careful to make sure that when you upload, you're done with your photo preparation, because once you bring them in, that's it. Now it's just layout. What does theme mean? Photographers, artists have different reasons about how they identify a theme. When I'm on a magazine assignment, for example, if I'm given an assignment to go down to Key West, it could be a general assignment. It could be a general theme. It basically means the same thing, but I could also be given an assignment in Key West. Okay, I want you to shoot everybody who rides bikes, all of the different ways that people utilize bikes in Key West. That's an assignment. That could also be a theme. So it can be anything you want, whatever the driving interest is for you when you go down there. You know, you look on the screen now, you know, some of the things that I thought, some of the funny, bizarre things that I saw in Key West. That in itself could be an entire theme. But the way I chose my theme was to show a little bit of everything. So that's my theme. That's my assignment for Key West, was to go down there and show you Key West from as many different entry points as I possibly could. And your theme might be that I'm only going to photograph bikes. And so you can see it doesn't matter what you choose, just that it's important to choose something. Because if you don't, you just go so many different directions. It's very hard then to put a project together that describes a theme. So the beginning of that book, it's always a good idea someplace, whether it be in the title, whether it be in the introduction, whether it be in the caption, you're allowing your audience to understand where you're coming from. You actually identify in words your theme and then let the theme play out. So how do you reinforce your theme? How do you let people know what it is you're trying to say? Your introduction can work, your captions can work, the choice of your templates. Am I going to do everything in squares, tiny squares? Am I going to do everything as horizontals? Am I going to do a mixture? Am I going to do a montage? All of these things are a way to embellish your theme and create almost a gallery for your audience to come into and appreciate. So, you know, copy or no copy. You know, big text, no text, only in the beginning, only at the end. Anything you want, it's your book. So for the Key West book, you know, it's basically a little bit of everything. I'm trying to show a little bit of everything about Key West in a very small book over a very, very short period of time. This wasn't a 2-week assignment. This was a trip down to do a couple different things. 5 days is not a lot of time to go and do things, and you have to base, you know, all of your success based on what's happening at the time you're down there, whether it be weather, people, parades, events, all of these things that could be happening at the time you're down there is what you're going to be given as a photographer to cover. So for mine, it was kind of an overall view of Key West. So in putting that together, how do you put a book like that together where it's just a fluid collection of photographs that go from the beginning to end without, for example, separating it by chapters? You know, a chapter on beaches, a chapter on downtown, a chapter on historic buildings, a chapter on the eclectic life that exists in places like Key West. Do you have to do that? You know, we've been raised as kids, all of the books that we read, chapter, chapter, chapter. The book doesn't have to have that. Remember, this is your book. So there are some secrets that you can use, that you can incorporate to help define your book as something that is interesting and provocative to read. And so in my book, because it's a collection of images, I wanted to make sure, for example, with the cover. If you look at my cover shot here, I actually chose an image that is of non-living people. It's a statue of a gal looking out with binoculars who's painted gold. It's kind of this whimsical, almost tacky kind of look of what Key West is. And it has it, is part of its culture down there. And these blue paints that are over the binoculars, which reflects the color of the water, that gorgeous water, that is also the staple of what Key West is. So to make sure that I did that, you know, I come up with a theme. It's only 5 days in Key West, so that's the title of my book. Now, when you look at the back cover of the book, I could leave the back cover of the book blank. It could just be black. But I decided, as opposed to doing that, I wanted to make sure that I also show the reason why people go to Key West. So you can kind of see where I'm going here. I'm trying to show both sides, trying to give you as much information as you possibly can. So if we bring this up a little bit, here's kind of the key ingredient here, is that I'm not going to be putting pictures throughout this book and not telling you where they are from, what is happening. That is an essential part to keep my interest in a book, is I have to know what I'm seeing, where it was, the who, when, where, how, okay? So on the back of this, the back of the book, when you pick it up, you see this kind of tacky shot on the front with these statues. But on the back of the book, a simple caption. It's an aerial shot that's taken of a very, very wealthy private beach. They have beautiful water. Every house has a pool in it. But the back of the book has a caption on it. Explore the people, culture, history, eclectic beaches and wildlife of Florida's gem at the end of the road, Key West. So when someone picks up this book, before they've even opened the book, they already have an idea of what they're going to find inside. So let's just skip ahead here. Let's go to another spot. This is the opening page on the book. And if we go to the opening page of the book, again, Key West, beaches, I think that's what people first think of when they think of Key West. is, of course, it's the end of the Keys, the end of Florida, 90 miles from Havana, and its beaches. And so again, I'm trying to clue my audience as to what they're going to see as soon as you open the book, that first page, Key West, Florida, fun, sun, and play. So that isn't necessarily a caption, but it's more of an impression of what's out there. All right, so let's skip ahead. Let's go to another set of images here. I want to show you, because I don't do chapters, but in the templates, what have you, there's a place that's called Nancy Forrester's Secret Garden, downtown Key West. This gal, who is an artist and an environmental activist, is one of these people who takes into her home abused and displaced parrots and macaws. And she's opened up her place for people to come in and visit her place right in downtown Key West. But again, if I just put pictures of birds in there, and maybe trying to pull them off as birds that are truly in the wild, which is misleading, or bypassing the fact that there is somebody doing this incredible work in downtown Key West with these beautiful birds, you'd be missing something, wouldn't you? So in my layout and using my templates, you can see I've got a photo of Nancy in here also, but I've also put a caption in. So keep that in mind when you're out shooting. If you're developing a theme, you can't just put in your photos a page number. People want to know what's happening. Carry a notebook. Write down some notes when you're taking pictures that this has the potential to be within the theme of your book. You want to know the who, what, when, where, and how, okay? Keep that in mind. One of my tricks is that, for example, if I go into a bar and I shoot a bar on the inside, I think, wow, this is a fabulous shot, but I'm in a hurry to get someplace else. When I walk out of the bar, I turn around, I take another frame of the name of the bar to make sure that no matter what, if I haven't written it down, I can always go back to my images and I can find the name of the bar, and oftentimes I'll shoot the street sign so I know where it is. But also you can always go to Google and find out where everything is on Google if you know the name of the place. If you don't know the name, you're up ship creek, because you've got to be able to have that information. So with Nancy, again, to make these images more interesting, more informative, more compelling, Nancy Forrester, a Key West artist and environmental activist, at her Nancy Forrester's Secret Garden, where she rescues abused and orphaned parrots and macaws. Boom, you know what you're looking at now for not only this page, but for the next page. And how wonderful is that now you've gone through here and you've been able to see it. But so you can see, I'm not going chapters separating beach, downtown, wildlife this way. I'm putting captions in and allowing the viewer to walk through these pages and learn as they go along. But now, let's get to a section where it was really offbeat. When you think about wildlife in places like Key West, there isn't a whole lot of it. There's birds and things like this that people see, of course, but people don't think of wildlife, mammals, bigger animals, unless they get out into the ocean. So in order for me to kind of bring the audience to a point where there isn't just all of a sudden a picture of a beach and then all of a sudden a picture of a deer, the wildlife experience that we had there was pretty remarkable. I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that in the book, that people got an opportunity to see, wow, this was a special moment. So in doing so, if you look over here on the left side of the page, I've actually used the fonts, and you can see here, the word wildlife, larger font, a larger size than the rest of my copy, automatically identifies where and what it is I'm talking about. And then I've got a brief caption that describes all of this, so not to interrupt my pages. And again, I've chosen a template and a layout that enables me to do this. But now, boom, you read this short little copy and caption, you understand where you're at, and now when I jump to my next page, boom, you already know what's happening there, but I haven't cluttered it with other caption information. It's a very clean shot of going from, okay, here's Key West wildlife, here's a little story about it, here's some more images of it, and boom, I'm done, and I'm ready to move on. So that's one of the tricks in thinking about your theme. If you're doing an art book, if you wanted to simply, again, have it as a gallery, one image per page, perhaps in the beginning of the book, when you get back to the very beginning, again, when you can choose your templates, you can take sections like this, and when you do that, you could actually take this or this image and write your introduction. You could do 2 pages of just text that explain your art theme. So then, after they've gone past the introduction, as they go through the book, there's no chapters. There's just art images displayed like a portfolio, like a gallery. And you've given them that information that they need to be able to carry them through your theme and understand what your vision was as you were trying to portray that in your book. So there's any number of ways you can do that. There isn't a right way, there isn't a wrong way, there's your way. But there are ways that you can embellish it. There are ways that you can make it more provocative, more interesting, more informative, more educational for the audience. Captions, putting specific pieces of information. What's the name of the bar? What's the name of the street? What's the name of the bird? All of these kinds of things make the book so much more enjoyable to read. So the fun begins. When you get to the point where your images are uploaded, now you can start putting your book together. And this is the great part about it. And one of the things that makes it really easy, I'm using blurb.com. And blurb.com has this wonderful area up here where once you've uploaded your pictures and you're ready to edit your book, put together, called picture layouts. And so as you can see here, I've got, a basic, so if I choose a horizontal shot or if I choose a vertical shot, you can see how the template automatically changes. So let's just take a photo here, and I've activated this. I'm just gonna, this is ridiculously how, boom, there's my layout right there. Isn't that the fabulous thing? Now, here's something that in the past was a problem with shots. People think, oh my gosh, all right, so the book is gonna be a 10 by 13, but there's 100 different templates in there. How am I going to get my images to fit in that template? Do I have to resize every single picture to make it fit in that template? No, you don't. It's gotten so much more sophisticated than that. It's not a problem. So you can see when I sent this picture in, this particular template didn't necessarily work for this. So watch this. This is really slick. So this one is not quite a full horizontal. That's more like if you're taking a 4x5 image. So let's find one that is more horizontal. Look at this one. See, now you got my whole image. But now my layout's changed, okay? But I want to keep it more that kind of that square format. So let's go back to this one, but yet my image now has gone beyond its borders. Look at this. This is super slick. So now that this picture is in here, and I've got that photo, let's go back to the one I started with so we don't confuse anybody. Boom, there it is. All right, now, as this photo is in here, I'm thinking to myself, holy cow, that really doesn't fit quite the way I want it to be. So how can I get this, or do I want to make it look different, the background? I can just click a background color. See this? Every one of these, I click and boom. I tend to go with either black or white, so if I click black now, boom, there it is. So now I've got a black background. So with that particular image, with that particular layout, you can see we have a variety of choices. So under picture layouts, my page layouts, text layout, photo spread layouts. So let's go to that one, and then boom, see how that's changed? So now I've got a variety of different kinds of layouts that I can go full page spreads, or I can go back here, my page layouts, or I can go back over here, picture layouts, which is the one I tend to go for the most of the interior of my books, until I get to a point to where I'm actually going to be wanting to be able to go and do a spread. And so a spread, let's go ahead and delete this image. Let's go back now. Let's go ahead and go back to a spot where we're going to, let me go back, I'll find an empty spot here. Let's drag an image here. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to go to here so we have a spread. And I've got an image here that I shot as a panoramic. It's a 7-image stitch. Very long, very skinny. So under my picture layouts, I'm going to go down here where it says photo spread layouts. All right, now I'm going to want to use this long skinny shot here. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to go over here. Now I'm going to go ahead and highlight here. Now it used to be you had to cut your image in half and use 2 templates that lined up to make sure that they came together in the gutter, the center of the book, so your images would line up. Now it's so simple. Now I just take my panoramic image and I bring it up and boom, there it is. Automatically goes across both ways. The kind of things you want to be aware of is to make sure that wherever the gutter is, you want to make sure that that image will fall inside so it will go one way or the other. Whoopsie, lost it. And that your gutter is going to be in a spot that doesn't become inhibited by the gutter of the book. So you don't want to have, for example, people walking through that are important in your shot and cut them off in the gutter. So make sure you're moving your image one way or the other to make sure that it works wherever the seam, the gutter is, it's going to work for them. But that's how simple it is. If there's one thing that I think most photographers, artists fear the most, especially in a project like self-publishing, and they hear the word templates, they're worried that their images are going to be held prisoner based on what size the template is. Well, I think in the old days that was probably true. Then you would have had to have cropped off part of an image perhaps that you didn't want to crop off. You don't have to worry about that. All of these online self-publishing companies now, whether it be Blurb, whether it be Shutterfly, whether it be Lulu, Mixbook, My Publisher, it doesn't matter. They all have templates and abilities that allow you to be able to change your image size to fit the template. And then if you say, well, if I fit the template, there'll be extra room around. It's going to look silly. It doesn't. They've got that all figured out for you, so you can rest and relax when you've uploaded those images, you've cropped them how you want them cropped, not how you feel the template is going to force you to have it to happen, okay? So let me just show you really quickly here. We've got a template here now. We've got an image that is almost square, but I've got an image that is fairly rectangular in shape. So watch this. I'm going to drag my image over, and so now some of my image from left to right has been cropped. See this? See how I'm missing some of that image? So I'm in this template, but I don't want to go to a long horizontal template. I want to keep it, my image, this way in the frame. So look up here. If you go up to the bar, I've got a sizing bar up here, okay? So watch. I can either go down, see how it's gone down, or if there's a shot in this, a particular part of this where I said, well, you know what? I want to come in and just really see the texture of the cigars. Look at that. So I can enlarge it. I can actually, through the use of the templates, make it a better picture by bringing it up, because depending upon the size of how you use a photograph determines how its impact is to your audience. So it's a really key ingredient to hear. So again, you've made up your mind in your edit, but now when you get to your template, you might find that there's a stronger way to show your photograph using the existing templates and being able to enlarge the photograph by just using the slider up at the top. So you heard me say, well, geez, now I'm on inside the template, and now I've got all this extra room inside the template, inside the frame, inside the page. My gosh, that's terrible. Now watch this. So now I go back up to backgrounds, and I want to make sure that I keep my backgrounds. Let's just particularly say this, I want to go black. All right, so now you hit black, you go, oh my gosh, it's still happening, it's still happening. It's not happening. This is just the edit mode. So when you look down over here, you come over to your box, now I've got preview book. So a lot of times what I do with these particular programs, and I'm using Blurb here, now I want to see how it's going to look once I go to preview the book as it's being finished. Because you'll also see there's a number of little boxes and what have you that are in here. You know, you can see one here, one down here, one over here. These are for putting your captions, your text. But if I want to see, I'm worried mostly about my photograph, is this nonsense that's around my photo going to appear? Watch what happens when I hit preview book and I've chosen a black background. Boom, see that? Now you can see that that's how the photograph is going to look on that page. This lets me know. I go back to my mode over here, edit book, it comes back up. Same is true. So I click back on the photo, now let's go to my big, all right? Let's see how it's gonna look as a preview book, boom. Look at that. That's actually a better shot than having it being smaller. The impact now of seeing the cigars rolled as a close-up is even better. So building your book. It's the fun part. And one of the great things about these programs is that they allow us to be able to choose a variety of templates. I've pretty much got the book done, and I've got 4 to 6 pages left that I want to put together. And as I put the book together, you know, as I go from image to image, I'm putting certain collections of images together that work together. The images that I've got of the cigar roller, for example, it was such a compelling shot and place to shoot that who would have ever thought that in a book on Key West, there'd be more pages dedicated to the guy hand-rolling cigars than there would be of playing at the beach. But that's the way it works. These are the strongest. It was visually interesting and intriguing, so it got a lot of play. So now I'm moving towards the end of the book, and I've got maybe 6 to 8 pages left. And as I'm moving towards the end of the book, I've already addressed throughout my project, I've shown kind of the whimsical side of Key West. I've shown some of the street scenes, the bar scenes, the beaches, a couple of aerial photographs that show the color of the water. And so now as I'm moving towards the end of this book, which is kind of an overview of Key West, I want the end of the book to kind of be, we've kind of gone here, and we've ridden the roller coaster up, and now I kind of want the roller coaster to come back down. So when we get towards the end of the book now, I'm going to move back into more some of the sunset images of people gathering around the pier, watching the tall ships go by, couples that are walking by. So we've kind of gone from all of this kind of gritty mixture to now when we're closing out the book, I want to make sure that it's a little softer, and it's a nice way to close. When you finish looking at the book, you're going to want to go to Key West. You're going to want to have experienced it, and now you want to see the lovely side of it. And one of the reasons why people go, the warm light, the companionship, the beauty of nature and people combined in one element. So that's kind of where we're going. So as I look at my different templates, I've got a couple of images left that I want to use. And I think for most photographers, we like to have our pages displayed large. I mean, that's kind of natural, right? If I could put my photographs on every drive-in movie in the country, I would do that. but you also have to think about how you're putting your images together. Some images don't need to be big to be effective. Consequently, there are some images that can't be used small because they lose their impact. They have to be big. So in the templates here, I've chosen a template here which is going to allow me to use a strong vertical shot. And again, I've got this gumbo image. I'm just copying and dragging. Boom, there's my gumbo tree image. And I'm trying to show, again, this is coming right after the key deer segment that I've had. So the transition that goes from wildlife, I don't want to go from wildlife right to the pier. So if there's a more gentle way for me to kind of bring that out, that's why this collection of images is going there. But also the gumbo tree, which was part of the garden, the tropical garden and botanical gardens there in Key West. I also spotted a iguana that was walking through the trees. So one of these things, the gumbo tree, same thing, looking up, going, wow, look at this great light. Then when I looked up, I saw an iguana. So now I've got the iguana, and I've chosen a template here that is going to allow me to put the iguana over the gumbo tree, but I'm not losing any content. I'm not sacrificing anything from either one of the shots in doing that. And so when I put the iguana in here, I'm just going to make sure that I've got his head, which is the most important part, in the shot. So boom, there you go. Now I've got a gumbo tree and iguana in one shot. That page is good. Now, here's something else that I did. Prior to putting these photos in, I also put my caption in. But you can see that the page is white. And because the page is white, and up here, where you can see where the copy goes in, the text is also white. See this little box right here? I can choose my color of my text. All right, because you don't see it, but ultimately what I want here is I want this page to have a black background so the gumbo tree and the iguana really pop out, as opposed to not popping out quite as so much. It's kind of stark with the white. So up at the top here, I'm just going to go up and I'm going to choose backgrounds. All right, right out the bat, see what happens? You can see my caption information, which is over here. I've already typed it in. When I go to the black page, I used white type. And so now it pops out. So if you're ever worrying when you get in here that you've typed something, do make sure that you go up and you see what color your background is. Prior to doing this, you can make sure that you choose the appropriate color of your text to make sure that it pops out. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and give ourselves a black background. Boom, there we go. So I've got my caption for the gumbo tree and for the iguana. Now I need to find a shot over here on the right that's going to give me a shot that's going to work with this. So we're kind of going with the nature theme, and like I said, I'm slowly trying to integrate myself back into more people-oriented. But let's go ahead and use this moment to take a shot that is taken at night. And I had a shot, here it is right here, a photograph that is of a palm tree under a full moon, which you can actually see. It's actually not a full moon, it's a crescent moon, but you can see the shadow on the moon. And so this is going to require a vertical format. So how do I want to do this? This particular shot that you see on the screen now is pretty much centered with a little left off center of the iguana. So when I move to the right, which template do I want to choose? If I choose this particular template, this vertical photograph is actually a pretty skinny shot. It's going to be much wider than this. That's okay, I can always shrink it down, but it's also leaning heavy into the gutter in this particular layout. I think it's going to work better if I go with a more standalone. See, I can go here, or I can bring it over to the other side, but I'm thinking that this one is an opportunity here to go with something maybe a little bit more centered, and boom, there you go. So again, going through my templates as opposed to this shot, as you can see as it goes to the right, that's going to be too far right, and I think it's going to be too much distance in here. So I'm going to go center, and I'm also going to choose a black background with this, even though my shot is at night, because I really want this photograph to be at night, and choosing a black background is going to allow me to do that. So I'm just going to grab my shot, I'm going to drag it over here, and boom, there we go. Now, on this particular shot, I want to make sure that I'm getting as much of that as I can. So we come up to the top of my screen here, I go to the slider, and this is where, again, we get back to the point where you don't have to worry about sizing your photographs, knowing in advance what the templates are. Because once you get here, if you just create everything at a normal, say 8 by 12 inches, 300 dpi, when you upload those, now you have the capability of using the slider to drop in a shot like this, which was skinnier than the template, and now I can bring it down. See that? And I can actually adjust the size. Again, we don't have to worry about this border that's here, because watch what happens. So here now I've got the full frame in. You can see the moonrise. I've got this black background. I'm not going to worry so much, but because it's going to go black, now I'm moving over to my captions, and this is something else I should show you here. If you look down here, it says page views. Right now, I'm dealing with my double page spreads. I like to do that, and I can actually shrink how that looks. See this? By seeing the double page spread. The reason I do that is, again, from an artistic standpoint, it's important how you lay things out. The page on the left needs to work with the page on the right. They're together in the book. They will always be together in the book. They have to like each other. And so in doing this, it gives us the opportunity to be able to choose and see that. But if I want to go single page, when you look at page views, I can just do this. Now I can simply work off a single image and work that way. Now I know that I'm going to turn this particular photograph into a black background. So I'm going to type on this. Let's get this into, again, when you choose your font size, let's go back up to double because I already started there. There we go. And I know that my text size is going to be 12 on the font size. Now, when you look at the top here, you can see you've got anything that you can choose, any number of fonts that you want. You can scroll down, you can see they're all there. You can choose whatever you like. And also, you can choose your font size. Now, here's the thing about these font size. If you start changing them around, again, you're kind of destroying the consistency of how your images are going to be looked at if the font size is different each one. It's usually best to stick with the same font, stick with the same font size throughout your book, with exceptions of things like when we go back to the wildlife page here, and you can see how, let's see, oh, I had it on double. Let's do this, let's bring it down. I actually chose wildlife here, so you can actually, I use that to make a point. But otherwise, all of my caption information is basically the same size. All right, so let's go back over to our gumbo tree, and you can see we've got our caption here. Now, if I click on the button here, I'm seeing it. Now, this was taken at Smathers Beach, so I'm just going to say moonrise over Smathers Beach. I don't need to say any more than that. Now, again, checking your spelling is really important. When you're looking at a 12-point font at this size, it's so small, it's hard to see it. So another one of these little tricks, just come down here to your slider, make it big. Now I can really see, okay, moonrise over Smathers Beach. I'm in good shape, everything is spelled correctly. Now I don't have to worry about it. And now, because I know that I'm gonna go black and my type is black now, I'm gonna highlight it. I'm gonna come up here, I'm gonna turn it to white. It disappears, but now I'm gonna go to my background and I'm gonna click black. And I'll hit Preview Book, which is a nice little addition here, just to kind of check to make sure how your design choices have become. I'm going to look at that. Now, that's a handsome page. That really brings you into a mood, and that's exactly what I'm trying to transition in here. Is I'm trying to create a mood with the natural habitat, the natural life of Key West, slowly bringing us back into the human aspects of things, and that's one of the easiest ways. So let's put some people in here now. I think we've made the transition. So let's go back to Edit Book. We click Edit Book. I'm going to click on my next page. Boom. Just because this particular template shows up doesn't mean I have to use it. So now what I want to do is I want to find out, well, let's go to a certain transition. I've got another shot here that I'm going to use 2 photographs on. I've got one small shot that shows some of the street performers that are downtown. Oh, here's perfect. This is a perfect one. This one is going to, well, that's going to be a little too tight. So this is part of your decision-making process. You got to go through here as you're thinking about your images, which template is going to work the best. Now, here's the thing. If the template that you see in here, the choices that you see in here don't work, remember in that post-processing, and you can do this at any point in time. Let's say that I wanted to have a template that gave me a strong vertical for one image, but I needed a pretty strong horizontal as a smaller picture to go this way, which will overlap that shot. If you don't see it in the templates that exist here in your post-processing, or you get to this point in the book and you say, geez, I don't see that template here and I really want that for this book, then just go back to your software program like Photoshop and create a page that has those 2 images on it, save it as a single image, put it back on. You can import it again at any point in time, import new photos into your program, and then just drag that over as a single image, and boom, you have the image that you want, okay? So it's just that simple to do it. So let's quickly just go through here. I'm gonna choose one picture can be cropped. I'm looking for a template that's gonna give me, boom, right here. It's gonna give me 2 shots. I'm gonna start off with my strong, or actually, you know what? I want to use these 2 together. See, this is the beauty of this. You change your mind constantly. I want a strong horizontal shot to be my big photo here. So let's find one here that gives me both. Oh, I'm not seeing that. So this might be one of those ones where I come back and I actually create it. So let's don't do that. I'll create that and come back to it. So let's just go with a strong horizontal on another one of the shots that I have. So let's go to a people shot. Here we've got, let's go with a strong horizontal. That one's a little flatter. See, this is the fun part, isn't it? You get to make all these choices and decisions as you go through. And again, we're not in any rush because we want the project to be darn good. So let's go with this guy. All right, and now I'm going to take this photo of people standing down. We're going to drag it across, and boom, there we go. Now, one of the lovely things about this image is that you've got birds, you've got a tall ship, you've got the tourists that are all gathering. But again, what I want to check on is I want to make sure that I'm getting the whole image out there. Because for me, when I framed this shot in post-processing, before I uploaded it, I made sure I wanted all of this information, the people on the left and the people on the right, I wanted them in the shot. I don't want to risk cropping them. So I've got it here. There, I can bring it right to there. Again, this will be a great opportunity for a black background. Let's drop a black background in there, and boom, there we go. Now, again, we don't have to worry about this, which was part of the template. I can hit Preview Book. Look at that. That beautiful image now is just swimming in that sea of black, and we are good to go. So that's all it is. So you just continue your process. You try to create a collection of images that kind of follow a certain consistency with a visual weave. I'm working my way towards the end of the book, which will just be a nice, soft infrared shot that closed the book out, which is kind of the artsy-fartsy kind of appeal. But I've gone through whimsical, gritty, wildlife, companionship, the mood of Key West. It's that easy. You know, one of the things that I like to employ when I'm putting a project together is that each one of my kids are very creative-minded. And I get to a point sometimes where I've got, again, when I uploaded my images, I said, you know, go maybe 20% more than you need, because there's going to be times when you're putting images together on a page where these are all similars, but they may, color-wise, they may play off of each other in a way that's very different. It ended up in this book that I had a fire scene, you know, a campfire scene where people are standing around the fire under palm trees, and then I had another image which is a star image, and I had two different ones. One that had a very blue cast because it was taken earlier in the night, another one that was taken later at night when the sky was really black and the glow of the fire was hitting the bellies of the palm trees. Much different color between these. One was blue, one was golden. And so I bring people in and say, okay, which one you think works better on this page? The one with bluish color or the one with golden? People came in and unanimously said, go with the gold one. So that's a little trick that you can use to, if you've got questions, you really don't care which image works because you've uploaded both of them as potential successors to being in the book. So this is why you do that. So you get an opportunity to see, you know, which images play off of each other in the best possible way, creating a visual marriage. So don't forget that when you're preparing your images prior to uploading them to your self-publishing book software, make sure you've got all of your ducks in a row. Make sure that that image is color corrected the way you want it. Make sure that you've gone to the publisher's site and make sure that you're following the way that they have described the way they need the images to be uploaded. You know, for example, do they want TIFFs? Do they want JPEGs? Do they want it RGB color? Do they want it CMY color? These are important for you to get the best quality for your upload, making sure that you have prepared your images in your processing prior to uploading. It's the little things too, you know, you might think, oh, well, it's being published in a book, you know, and I've got a couple of dust marks on it. They'll probably just blend in when it goes to publishing. No, they'll stand out more. Spend time, go over each image inch by inch, make sure you've got everything taken care of prior to uploading, and you'll be much happier with the final results. When you're putting a book together and you're dealing with the self-publishing software, which has made your life so darn easy, and you can put a professional book together literally in several hours once you've gotten your images prepared, that there's on occasion that you'll run across and you'll look at the templates and you've got it in your head that you really need these two images to work together on the same page, but yet the templates that exist within the self-publishing software, there isn't the exact template that you want to make that image communicate the way you want it to do. It's not a problem. Just go back to, say, Photoshop and open up the two pictures that you want and create a single image where you put them exactly where you want them to be, and then you have created a single JPEG of that particular shot, and you just import that in like you have all of the other images. And when you go to your template, you can go to a full page template and then drag in that newly created single image, which has two images in it the way you want them. Voila, you've done everything that you wanted to do. The template didn't exist, but you were able to customize it using your own software to create a single image to get exactly what you want. So there it is, we're done. Book is in the bank. What a great feeling. You know, you spent that time developing a theme, putting the pictures together, you prepared them beautifully, they're all set to go, you've got a theme that works, can't wait to show your friends, your family, your business partners. The nice thing is that it's easy to do that. All you simply have to do is go to the link at the site that you've had, they can go right online, they can flip through all the pages and see all the wonderful things that you came up with. It's just that simple. What a fun project to do. So that one's in the books. It's time to go and do another one. Adios.
Mastering photography takes persistence and practice. Stay with it. Look forward to more inspiring lessons in future editions of the Ultimate Photo Guide Digital Photography Series.